Welcome back to our channel, you beautiful soap fans. We need to talk about the massive Days of Our Lives spoilers for Wednesday, August 5th, because the emotional damage in this upcoming episode is completely off the charts. Let us get right into it. Peacock TV spoilers. We have been tracking this custody drama for weeks, and the situation between Alex Kiriakis, Joy Wesley, and Stephanie Johnson is reaching a boiling point. On Wednesday, August 5th, Alex Kiriakis is practically on his knees, desperately pleading with Joy Wesley. Alex Kiriakis does not want Stephanie Johnson pushed out of little Kelsey's life. But here is the kicker. Joy Wesley was actually about to relent. Can you believe it? Joy Wesley was on the verge of softening her stance and allowing Stephanie Johnson to remain a part of the baby's life. But then, in classic self-sabotaging fashion, Stephanie Johnson completely screwed it up with her wild accusations. Stephanie Johnson marched right into the middle of these delicate custody negotiations and started hurling insults and exposing the manipulative tactics of Joy Wesley. Let us be real for a second. Stephanie Johnson is actually spot on about Joy Wesley. Joy Wesley has been playing a very calculated, manipulative game ever since Joy Wesley arrived in Salem with that baby. Joy Wesley knew exactly what she was doing by dropping this baby bomb on Alex Kiriakis and disrupting his marriage. But just because Stephanie Johnson is right, that does not mean Stephanie Johnson needed to say it out loud. That is crazy. Timing is everything, and Stephanie Johnson chose the absolute worst possible moment to unleash her wrath. Alex Kiriakis is terrified of losing his daughter. If we look back at the history of Alex Kiriakis, we know that Alex Kiriakis suffers from massive abandonment issues because his biological mother, Angelica Devereaux, basically tossed Alex Kiriakis aside. Alex Kiriakis swore he would never be an absent father. So when Stephanie Johnson jeopardizes the access Alex Kiriakis has to Kelsey, Stephanie Johnson is effectively destroying her own marriage. I personally believe this is the end of the road for Alex Kiriakis and Stephanie Johnson. And here is my controversial hot take for the day. Stephanie Johnson deserves to lose Alex Kiriakis. I know. Send your hate mail to the comments section. But passionately defending Stephanie Johnson is impossible right now. Stephanie Johnson has become so paranoid and reckless, especially after the trauma Stephanie Johnson suffered with Owen Kent. Yes, Stephanie Johnson has PTSD, but screaming during custody negotiations? Stephanie Johnson is a walking liability. On the other hand, I ruthlessly criticize Joy Wesley for weaponizing a child. Joy Wesley is using Kelsey as a pawn to edge Stephanie Johnson out and claim Alex Kiriakis for herself. It is a brilliant, albeit evil strategy, and unfortunately for Stephanie Johnson, Joy Wesley is winning this war. Moving on to the most heartbreaking storyline of Wednesday, August 5th. Grab your tissues, because Lexie Carver is saying her final goodbyes to her family. The scene in the hospital room of Lexie Carver is going to utterly destroy us. Abe Carver and Theo Carver are standing by the bedside of Lexie Carver, watching the woman they love slip away for the second time. Can you imagine the psychological torture of that? Abe Carver already grieved Lexie Carver years ago when Lexie Carver supposedly died of a brain tumor. Now, thanks to the twisted science of Dr. Wilhelm Rolf and the DiMera family, Abe Carver and Theo Carver were given a false miracle. The resurrection drug has completely failed. Theo Carver is losing his mother all over again. The emotional weight of this moment cannot be overstated. It is a cruel, unusual punishment for Abe Carver and Theo Carver. And then, just when the tears are flowing, who walks into the hospital room? E.J. DiMera. Amazing. The sheer audacity of E.J. DiMera to show his face in that room. Abe Carver is absolutely furious when E.J. DiMera shows up. Abe Carver knows that E.J. DiMera is complicit in the DiMera experiments that brought Lexie Carver back only to torture her with a second death. But let us look at the psychology of E.J. DiMera here. E.J. DiMera genuinely loves his sister. E.J. DiMera obviously wants to say goodbye to Lexie Carver before Lexie Carver passes away. E.J. DiMera is arrogant, ruthless, and manipulative. But E.J. DiMera has always had a soft spot for his siblings, even when E.J. DiMera is actively warring with them. This reminds me of what Stefano DiMera did back in the day. Stefano DiMera would ruin the lives of his children, but Stefano DiMera would still demand their love and loyalty. E.J. DiMera is his father's son, through and through. But E.J. DiMera has other massive problems on his plate. E.J. DiMera is deeply worried about his other sister, Kristen DiMera. And that may be exactly why E.J. DiMera goes to deliver some highly disturbing news to Johnny DiMera. E.J. DiMera is going to tell Johnny DiMera that Lexie Carver is dying, which will devastate Johnny DiMera. But more importantly, E.J. DiMera needs to warn Johnny DiMera that Kristen DiMera is on the loose. Peacock TV spoilers, we know that E.J. DiMera kidnapped Kristen DiMera and locked Kristen DiMera in a shipping container, but Kristen DiMera escaped, and now Kristen DiMera is roaming Salem disguised as Susan Banks. E.J. DiMera knows that Kristen DiMera is a lethal threat, and E.J. DiMera fears that Kristen DiMera might come for Johnny DiMera to enact her revenge. But here is the kicker. E.J. DiMera is warning Johnny DiMera about Kristen DiMera without even knowing the full, terrifying truth. E.J. DiMera is completely in the dark about the fact that Kristen DiMera was the mastermind behind Sophia Choi trying to kill Johnny DiMera. If you ask me, this is a huge mistake, because E.J. DiMera is underestimating just how far Kristen DiMera has already gone. If E.J. DiMera finds out that Kristen DiMera ordered a lethal hit on Johnny DiMera, E.J. DiMera will go absolutely nuclear. We are talking about a scorched earth DiMera civil war. E.J. DiMera will not just kidnap Kristen DiMera again. E.J. DiMera will actively try to end the life of Kristen DiMera. The internal logic of the show dictates that anyone who targets the child of E.J. DiMera signs their own death warrant. Amidst all this chaos, we get a surprisingly tender moment between Stephanie Johnson and Theo Carver. Stephanie Johnson sits down and quietly listens to Theo Carver as Theo Carver pours his heart out. Theo Carver really needs a friend right now because Theo Carver is losing his mom, Lexie Carver, for the second time. And that has to be so terribly unbearable. For Stephanie Johnson, this is actually a beautifully grounding moment. Stephanie Johnson has been so wrapped up in her own baby mama drama with Alex Kiriakis and Joy Wesley that Stephanie Johnson has lost touch with reality. Listening to the profound, life-altering grief of Theo Carver might just be the reality check that Stephanie Johnson desperately needs. Theo Carver is a gentle soul, and Theo Carver deserves all the support Salem can offer right now. This brings us to some intense predictive lore. Based on the internal logic of Days of Our Lives, this shared moment of grief between Stephanie Johnson and Theo Carver could blossom into something more. Could Theo Carver and Stephanie Johnson form a deep, romantic bond? It would certainly solve the Alex Kiriakis problem. Meanwhile, the impending death of Lexie Carver is going to trigger a massive shift in the DiMera power dynamic. I predict that Abe Carver is going to launch a full-scale legal and public war against DiMera Enterprises. Abe Carver will not let the death of Lexie Carver go unpunished. And with EJ DiMera distracted by his blood feud with Kristen DiMera, the entire DiMera empire is ripe for a hostile takeover. Perhaps Chad DiMera will step up to dethrone EJ DiMera once and for all. The stakes have literally never been higher, and the emotional fallout from Wednesday, August 5th is going to change Salem forever. We are losing a beloved legacy character, marriages are crumbling, and a DiMera civil war is brewing on the horizon. So, I have to ask you all a very specific question. Do you think EJ DiMera will actually murder Kristen DiMera when EJ DiMera discovers the truth about the hit on Johnny DiMera, or will Kristen DiMera outsmart EJ DiMera once again? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Force yourselves to pick a side in this DiMera war. And if you love this deep dive analysis, you absolutely must hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to Peacock TV spoilers right now so you never miss a single update, theory, or breaking news story from Salem. See you in the next video.